Hi, welcome to this video series on preparation for your GMAT quantitative reasoning section. So the quantitative reasoning section has two types of questions in it. One is the problem solving and second is the data sufficiency. When it comes to problem solving, you'll be having one question and 5 options. You have to select one which suits it the best. And for the data sufficiency, you'll be given one question and 2 statements. So you'll have to check if the data given in the statement is enough to answer the question asked, and that's why it's called data sufficiency. If it is if the data is sufficient, based on that you will be selecting your answer choices. This topic, it is arithmetic data sufficiency type of questions. All the data sufficiency questions will have the same answer options. So let's look at what the options are. The answer option A is when statement 1 alone is sufficient but statement 2 alone is not sufficient. Answer option B is when statement 2 alone is sufficient but statement 1 alone is not sufficient. And now answer option C is when both the statements together are sufficient but neither statement alone is sufficient to answer the question. Now option answer D is when each statement alone is sufficient to answer the question, and answer option E is when statements 1 and 2 together are also not sufficient. So you will have to pick one of these answer options based on the information given in the question. Let's look at the first question. The question says that the product of positive integers m and n is 36. What is the value of m plus n? So what's the question? And the first statement is 1, m is evenly divisible by 9, and statement 2 is n is evenly divisible by 2. Okay. So what does the question tell us? You have two positive integers m and n, and the product of which m into n is equals to 36. Let's see when these are integers what all options we have for m and n. 1 into 36 gives 36. Okay. 2 into 18 gives 36. Okay. 3 into 12 gives 36. 4 into 9 gives 36, and we have 6 into 6 will give you 36. So these are the various positive integers combinations of m and n that can be selected for you having the value of its product as 36. Now what is the question asking? The question is asking what is the value of m plus n. To calculate m plus n from all these options, you get a different m plus n for each of these combinations. Now let's look at the statement 1. Statement 1 tells us that m is evenly divisible by 9. M is divisible by 9. From these answer options, what can be selected? Is 36 divisible by 9? Yes, 36 is divisible by 9. So you can say that m into n is 36 into 1, where m is 36 and n is 1. And is 18 divisible by 9? Yes, 18 is also divisible by 9. So 18 into 2 and 9 into 4. Again 12 is not divisible by 9, but 9 is divisible by 9. 9 into 4 is another combination. So for each of these combinations, m plus n will come out different. Here m plus n will be 37, here it will be 20, and here it will be 13. Now let's look at what statement 2 is telling us. So the statement 2 is telling us, so therefore this is insufficient information to answer the question. So statement 1 is giving you insufficient information. N is evenly divisible by 2. So n is being divisible by 2. So what all options are there? So it can be it cannot be 1 into 36. It can be 36, n can be 36, of course it can be. So you can have m into n as 1 into 36. Can n be 18 or 2? It can obviously be 18 or 2. So 2 into 18 is divisible by 2. Is 12 divisible by 2? 12 is divisible. So you have 3 into 12 is also possible. Is 4 divisible by 2? So you can have 9 into 4 as an answer option, and 6 is also divisible by 2. So 6 into 6 is also divisible by 2. So there are many all answer choices. Almost all combinations have an n which is divisible by 2. Therefore this is also insufficient to answer the question what is m plus n. Now let's look at statement 1 and statement 2 together. Together it says that m should be divisible by 9 and n should be divisible by 2. So for that combination of m and n, you have 18 into 2 and you have 9 into 4. You still have 2 different combinations. Here the sum will come out to be 18 plus 2 20, here the sum will come out to be 9 plus 4 13. So, you still have 2 answer options. So, therefore, statement 1 and 2 together are also not sufficient to answer the question. Therefore, answer is option E, where both the statements together are also not sufficient to answer the question. Now, let us look at the next question. So, the question says, if a wire of 27 meters long is cut into 3 pieces of 3 different lengths, what is the length of the longest piece? So, let us say the 3 pieces are of lengths A, B and C, and let us say A is the shortest and C is the longest. So, statement 1 tells us that the length of the longest piece is twice the length of the shortest piece. So, the longest piece is C, it is equals to twice the length of the shortest piece, which is A. So, 2 into C is 2 into A, and we are supposed to find what is the length of the longest piece. So, the question is asking us what is the length of, what is C equal to basically. Okay, so, we know that the wire's total length is 27 meters. So, that means that A plus B plus C is equals to 27. Okay, and here you have C is equals to 2A, but you have no information about B. So, statement 1 is not sufficient to answer the question. You cannot calculate what C is. When it comes to statement 2, it is saying that the sum of the lengths of 2 shorter pieces is 15 meters. So, what is the shortest one? Shortest piece is A and the next shortest one is B. So, the sum of these 2 shorter pieces is equals to 15. So, therefore, we know that A plus B plus C is equals to what? For total length is 27, and here you are given A plus B. So, you can say A plus B is 15, substitute that value there, 15 plus C is equals to 27, therefore, C is equals to 12. So, therefore, this is sufficient information for you to calculate what the value of C is. Therefore, answer is option B, where statement 1 alone is not sufficient, but statement 2 alone is sufficient to answer the question. Statement 2 alone is sufficient to answer the question. Now, let us look at the next question. Is 7 to the power of 7 divided by 7 to the power of x an integer? Okay. And statement 1 tells us that x is between 0 and 7 inclusive. X is less than equal to 7, greater than equal to 0. So, basically your question is asking you whether 7 to the power of 7 divided by 7 to the power of x an integer. Okay. Statement 1 is telling us that x lies between 7 and 0. Therefore, we are not told whether x is an integer or not. If x is not an integer, if x is equals to say 7, then definitely this 7 to the power of 7 divided by 7 to the power of 7 is an integer, it is equals to 1. But if x is equals to any integer number x, if it is 6, again 7 to the power of 7 divided by 7 to the power of 6 will give you 7 to the power of 1, that is 7, it is again an integer. But if x is some value say 3.5, if it is a fractional value, it is the decimal places. So, that time 7 to the power of x will also be a fractional value, a decimal value, and it will not necessarily be an integer, not an integer. 7 raised to 7 minus 3.5, that is 3.5. 7 raised to 3.5 is not an integer. So, we do not know. So, we can definitely not say whether or not it will be an integer. So, the information here is not sufficient to answer the question. Now, let us look at statement number 2. Statement number 2 tells us that mod x is equals to x square. Okay. So, this means that if x is positive, if x is greater than or equal to 0, then x is equals to x square, which when cancelling out both sides you can have mod x, x will be equals to either 1 or x will be equal to 0. Okay, both of those values fulfilling this condition. So, yes, x can be 1 or 0, but if x is less than equal to 0, mod x will be minus x is equals to x square, which means that either x is equals to minus 1 or x is equals to 0. So, therefore, for this piece of information, statement 2, x is either equal to 0 or 1 or minus 1. And when you substitute these values in 7 to the power of 7 divided by 7 to the power of x, then it will be definitely an integer. 7 to the power of 7 divided by 7 to the power of 0 will be nothing but 7 to the power of 7, which is an integer. 7 to the power of 7 divided by 7 raised to 1 is also going to give you an integer, that is 7 raised to 7 divided by 7 raised to 1 is nothing but 7 raised to 6, which is again an integer. 7 raised to 7 divided by 7 raised to minus 1 will be 7 raised to 8, which is again an integer. So, therefore, the information given in statement 2 is sufficient to answer the question. So, your answer comes out to be answer option B. The statement 2 alone is sufficient to answer the question, but statement 1 alone is not sufficient to answer the question. Let us look at the next question now. What was the amount of money donated to a certain charity? Okay. We need to calculate what is the amount of money donated, total amount of money. So, the first statement tells us that of the amount donated, 40% came from corporate donations. So, we know that 40% came from corporate donations, that means that 60% will be from non-corporate. This is corporate, this will be non-corporate. But we do not know any amount values in dollars as to what is the amount that was donated from corporate donation. So, we cannot, it is not sufficient, this information is not sufficient to answer the asked question. Let us look at what statement 2 says. Statement 2 says of the amount donated, $1.5 million came from non-corporate donations. Okay. They are telling us that non-corporate is equals to $1.5 million, but it does not talk about how much is the corporate donations or what percentage this is. So, this again is not sufficient on its own to answer the question. But when you put both of these statements together, statement 1 and statement 2, so you know that from statement 1 you know that 60% is non-corporate donations. So, equating that, we can say that 60% of the total money is equals to 1.5. So, you can solve this to easily find what the total money is. So, yes, statement 1 and 2 together are sufficient to answer the question. The answer is answer option C. Let us look at the next question. Is the positive 2-digit integer n less than 40? Okay. Statement 1 tells us that the unit digits of n is 6 more than the 10th digit. Let us say that this integer n is equals to a, b, where a and b are its 10th digit and unit digit respectively. So, the first statement is telling us that the units digit of n, units digit is nothing but b, it is equals to 6 more than its 10th digit, say 10th digit is a. So, a b is equals to 6 plus a. So, let us look at what are all the possible values that a and b can take here. If say a is equals to 1, b is equals to 7, if say a is equals to 2, b is equals to 8, a is equals to 3, b is equals to 9, but if you increase a beyond this, that is a becomes 4, then b becomes 10, which is not possible because a and b are units digit and 10th digit, they are just digits, they can only be digits, they cannot be value beyond 9. So, what is the question asking? Is n less than 40? Okay, they are not asking you the value of n, but they are asking if it is less than 40. So, when a is equals to 1 and b is equals to 7, n will be what? What is the value of n? N is 17, When A is 2 and B is 8, N is 28, and when A is 3 and B is 9, then N is 39. So, for all these possible values, they are all less than 40. So, the question is asking whether N is less than 40. Therefore, this data is sufficient to tell that yes, definitely N is less than 40. Let us look at option 2, where N is 4 less than 4 times the unit digit. N is equals to 4 less than 4 times the unit digit. Unit digit is B. So, N will be 4 times that is 4B, minus it is 4 less than 4 times the unit digit. So, minus 4. So, let us look at what the maximum value can be. Maximum value will be when maximum value of N will be when B is also is at its maximum. The maximum value it can take is B is equals to 9. So, therefore, N will be equals to at maximum value of B, 4 9s are 36 minus 4, that is equals to 32. This is the maximum value N can take, therefore, N is less than 40 definitely. Therefore, the statement 2 is also sufficient on its own to answer the question whether N is less than 40. Therefore, the answer option becomes D, where each statement alone is enough to answer the question. Let us look at the next question now. What is the retail price of a certain calculator? The retail price of the calculator is $2 more than the wholesale price, and the retail price of the calculator is 50% more than $4 than the $4 wholesale price. Okay. So, we need to find what is the retail price of the calculator. Okay. So, statement 1 is telling us that the retail price is equals to $2 more than the wholesale price. Okay, but here we do not know anything about the wholesale price, so we cannot definitely we cannot calculate the retail price. Therefore, this information is not sufficient. Let us look at the second statement. Second statement tells us that the retail price is 50% more than the $4 wholesale price. So, 50% more will be 1.5 times. 1.5 times the wholesale price, which they are telling us is $4. So, 1.5 times 4 will be equal to 6. So, we know that retail price is equal to 6. Therefore, this is sufficient to answer the given question. So, answer comes out as option B, where statement 2 alone is sufficient to answer the question, but statement 1 alone is not sufficient to answer the question. Let us look at the next question now. If hashtag denotes one of the 4 arithmetic operations, addition, subtraction, multiplication and division, what is the value of one hashtag 2? Okay. The question says that this symbol hashtag stands for either addition, subtraction, multiplication or division. What is the value of one hashtag 2? Okay. What is the value of one hashtag 2? Okay. The first statement tells us that n hashtag 0 is equals to n. So, let us check, can a hashtag be addition? If it is addition, n plus 0 is equals to n. Yes, it can be addition. Can it be subtraction? Let us see, n minus 0 is again equal to n. So, yes, it can be subtraction. Can it be multiplication? Let us check, n into 0 is not equals to n, it is equals to 0. Therefore, it cannot be multiplication, and for the division also n divided by 0 is not equal to n. So, therefore, it cannot be division. So, it is either addition or subtraction. So, when it is addition, 1 hashtag 2 will be equals to what? 1 plus 2, that is equal to 3, and if it is subtraction, 1 minus 2 will give you what? Will be equals to minus 1. So, these are two different values that are coming. So, we cannot answer the question with this statement. So, this statement is not sufficient. Now, let us look at the second statement. The second statement is telling us n hashtag n is equals to 0. Is it possible when it is addition, n plus n is equals to 2n and it is not equal to 0? So, no. And n minus n is equals to 0. So, yes, it is equals to subtraction, and neither multiplication nor division will give you the answer. So, you know that hashtag is nothing but subtraction. Therefore, 1 minus 1 hashtag 2 will be equal to 1 minus 2, which is equals to minus 1. Therefore, this statement is sufficient to answer the question. Therefore, answer comes out to be answer option B, where statement 2 alone is sufficient, but statement 1 is not sufficient on its own to answer the question. Those were sample questions for the topic of arithmetic in the data sufficiency type of questions. Hope they were clear. Thanks for watching.